All right. This is it. This is the weekly close. It's the first weekly close also after CZ is out of the picture. Maybe for the most part, right now he's out of the picture. But we got tons of stuff to talk about today. We got Nvidia earnings from yesterday, some strange numbers out of there, also some weird guidance looking forward. We got some interesting information from retailers ahead of the Black Friday sales that are coming out this weekend and Cyber Monday as well. And we're just going to look at crypto because the market doesn't seem to react too much to what's happened just yet. All that and much more on today's episode of Money Never Sleeps. Welcome back for this special holiday edition of Money Never Sleeps. Not really a holiday edition. Before we get into it, just remember we are two guys who like talking about the markets. We're not financial advisors. You should always do your own research before you make any financial decisions. And we're just telling you what we're doing. We are not recommending you do anything. You guys are on your own, but we do love to talk about the market. We do love to have you guys engaged. There's no J-Web today. He is out hunting turkeys in Canada, but we got Mr. House here, and I'm glad to have him here for this holiday episode. House, how are we doing today?
Doing good. I think I'd be doing better if I was in Canada, so I could claim my Blur airdrop. But now I'm happy J-Web's up there, doing some non-degen stuff. And man, I feel like getting that turkey the day before Thanksgiving. It's gotta be a good feeling.
He's a man's man. He's gonna bring it in by its talons. I don't know the anatomy of a turkey. By its
I heard he
gizzards.
was plucking it himself.
Plucking it himself. He's gonna look back at this video and be like, "What are these idiots talking about right now?" But I think there's plenty of stuff to be optimistic about, especially since we're going into what is going to be a quiet next few days. Quiet as in for TradFi. I think crypto might be a little bit more volatile. I think we should kick it off right off the bat with Binance just because of the fallout. We'll talk about crypto and more prices afterwards, but I think we need to talk about the implications, what we're seeing on Twitter and sentiment across pretty much all financial markets, how this kind of seems like a big nothing burger at surface level, but it might be a lot deeper than a lot of people are anticipating. I think the big narrative right now is Binance is out of the picture. The ETF is going to be approved. I don't buy that story one bit. I still think that there's a little bit more to that, and there's a reason why they got Binance, and I think you probably could tell this better than anyone why it was smart for them to go after CZ first.
Yeah, so I mean, just glancing off of, or not necessarily glancing, but looking at the larger picture of the Binance case and what the charges came down. First, there was something like over 1 million sanctions violations issued, which is just like you're trying to set a record for biggest swift kick in the ass whenever you finally do get nailed. And hey, you did. Your exchange got what, $4.3 billion fine, which I think is the largest penalty in U.S. financial treasury history. So yeah, you made history.
So far,
good thing you were touting the four. It was four fingers, 4 billion. So that's cool. No, but I think when you look at the charges that were brought and what was said, it was Binance was laundering money and allowing terrorist groups such as ISIS, Hamas, Al Qaeda to launder money on their platform. So I think what's really interesting about this, and especially, we see CZ, he pays $50 million personal fine. He's not allowed to manage or operate Binance for the next 3 years. As part of his plea agreement, he's released on bond in his own recognizance, which means he's not held under a court order, not viewed as a significant flight risk, right? So what that means is that CZ's probably got a lot to say and he's willing to talk, right? So, we saw some of those earlier kind of email communiques as well as balances that came up back in July that were something, just communications between high-level Binance executives like, no, we shouldn't do this. This might be illegal. And then you get the other person saying, who cares? Just run it. We'll cover it on the back end. So I think it ultimately, it was coming to this point eventually. But, I think kind of like we said before the show, I think CZ is a smart enough guy to where he knew his time was coming to a close, and he realized, the best way this ends for Binance and himself in a favorable light is to come quietly, turn himself in, because he pays a $50 million fine. The dude had $80 billion at the peak of the bull market, and even now that we've drifted far from that number, his net worth, according to Forbes, was still around the $21 billion mark. So, hey, he takes a slap on the wrist, and he's able to walk away with 19 and a half, $20.5 billion to spare. But I think in the short and long term, it's a good thing for the at large crypto market, right? This was one of the signs, not necessarily the signs, but the events that we needed for any future ETF in the US to get approved, right? All the regulators, within Congress, within the Fed, and then the Treasury, they've been talking about blatant market manipulation. And Binance was cited as a cause of that. So I think this is getting us back on the right steps. But Kevin, you've been talking about how much CZ has been your enemy, how Binance has been the death of you, or not necessarily the death of you, but your arch rival in crypto. So what was your spot reaction when it happened, and how are you feeling now?
I'm not too surprised that it happened. It's something that I've been talking about for months, literally months. And I know there's people who have been on this battle with CZ for much longer than I have, right? Years. There's been a lot of fraud and over the years, and the bad thing is it was kind of obvious if you were willing to look deeper than just what the price is doing or whatever the headlines are telling you. I mean, if you just looked at some of the transactions on chain, I think it was like 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks ago with Jay Webb on the show. We pulled up Tron and the Tron scan. We just looked at a couple of random wallets, and we just said, all right, there's going to be very little Tron in this wallet. It's going to be millions to billions of dollars worth of transactions that have flown through those wallets, and we're going to see that they're all USDT and or even staked USDT, and they were going to Binance, Kraken, or any of the other exchanges, right? And we opened up one of them. Sure enough, it had like 0.01 TRX in it, and then it had, I think, 50 something million dollars worth of USDT that was sent in the past like 24 hours. So I mean, there's stuff like that you could have seen. It's like, all right, this is definitely sketchy. Is it money laundering? I can't verify and be for sure exactly what it is. Like, again, we can always make assumptions, but there was definitely red flags across the board. There also some price manipulation. I don't care if he says that the US and them didn't allege any price manipulation. At the same time, we saw the inflows into the exchanges of USDT, and again, always on the Tron blockchain, we saw those massive pumps, right? And it was always off low volume, and that 100% is not retail. That is not whales. That is institutional on the back end. Now it's really interesting right now because I'm happy what's happening with CZ, even though it sucks that he's probably not going to get a longer term. I mean, 18 months, I'll take it. Worst case, that best case scenario, 18 months, right? There's bigger players in this, and I just care that the entire space is rid of all this fraud. I do want to, I don't want to be petty, but I do have to show this. I think that there is still this false sense of optimism that CZ was a good guy that took one for the team. And I say this because a lot of people really did worship this guy. They thought that he was like, post FTX, he's a crypto savior, which I don't believe you should have any of those guys in the space. They're all trying to make money just like you, and they will walk all over you. But I gotta share this. This was just absolutely fucking wild to me. This is from Altcoin Daily. And again, I'm not trying to make fun of them or anything like that. But CZ tried to save the people from FTX and even helped bring SBF to justice. He is now sacrificing himself to save Binance Crypto Exchange and probably the whole Bitcoin bull run. The man is a hero. I mean, this type of just false idol worship is just ridiculous to me, seeing this blown out of proportion. And this kind of gives me the fear that the worst is yet to come, pretty much, when I look at this, because this is a bunch of people who are just aping into the market that don't necessarily understand the market that they're investing in. And this also goes up to Kathy Wood, who doesn't understand why the ETF has not been approved yet. And a lot of people are still saying the ETF is going to get approved now that Binance is out of the picture. It's like BlackRock's told you that it's about stable coins now. The SEC has been talking about that it's about Tether and the stable coins. I mean, even Coinbase, they're in a really rough position right now, I think, with USDC and Circle, because they were just draining them for the longest. And if they really want to see that ETF be approved, where there's not going to be that type of manipulation, if liquidity starts to get nil again, they're going to want, these stable coins to be regulated to some degree, especially Circle. I mean, Circle, trying to be the most transparent of the stable coins that currently are circulating out there. Not saying I trust them 100%, but I trust them a lot more than we look at Tether and a lot of these other things that popped up between these exchanges, right? As far as I can tell, that USDC for the most part has just been their way to get out of the market in fiat, while everything else has been just kind of minted. And we can't really verify if everything's backed 1-to-1. So I think right now a lot of people are getting really excited. Oh, ETF's going to come. I think that there's going to be a liquidity run at some point. I can't tell you when that is going to be, but I think it's going to be a crisis when people realize that if everyone was trying to get out at the same time, they're not going to be able to. And if they are able to, it's not going to be for 1-to-1 USDT to $1. I think it's more going to be like 33 cents if you're lucky to 1 USDT. That's kind of the scenario I'm thinking of. I think there is going to be a run. It's going to be really, really hard to tell exactly when it's going to happen. But I think what we saw this morning, even with Justin Sun, there was another hack. I say hack, but I think it's just whales getting off of getting out of the exchanges. And we have to understand, Binance had a lot of shadow money on the exchange, right? We saw that they were funneling money for all these terrorist groups. Now that the U.S. has such oversight over them, do you think that they're going to be, they're going to survive? Probably not. A lot of that volume did come from people who didn't want KYC. And again, Binance was cool with, no KYC. They were just pretty much just like, yeah, whatever. We'll take your money. we'll take your money. You can operate on our platform 100%. So I think that the fact that the U.S. government now has oversight, I don't think anyone wants to touch regulators if they're outside of the U.S. Why would you be on their list? It's probably going to cause the exchange to die a lot. I personally think that every time exchange KYCs, we start to see volumes drop significantly. KuCoin is a perfect example of it this year. So that's just my thoughts. I think that there is a lot still ahead of us, and people are getting ahead of themselves. And everyone's saying that this is bullish. It didn't go to 40K, guys. It didn't dump, but it didn't go to 40K. So right now, I think we're still in distribution. We're still in a supply zone. Really interested to see how this plays out over this weekend, because I think this is where we're going to start seeing a lot of people run for the exits.
Yeah, there's one thing you said that I want to double tap on, and it was everyone looking at CZ like he's a fallen angel, which I truly don't think is the case. But I think what's important to distinguish is people look at CZ in that regard because the larger majority of Binance's client base out of Southeast Asia, they kind of understood the risk and the Ponzi-nomics of a lot of the tokens that were getting on the Binance launchpad. And it was really more of this is the chance for me to become a millionaire type thing. So a lot of people made a lot of money as a result of what Binance did. Now, they don't realize what Binance did that made them a lot of money, and the strategies behind it were very murky and illegal, to be quite frank, or a lot of them were. But it also it's one of those moments where you can kind of see and find a distinguishing point on who has a greater understanding of the history and what has driven blockchain and crypto to where it is today, versus who has been a very new market entrant, isn't super educated, but is only just on the speculative and gambling side. Because when I look at people who furthered blockchain, furthered crypto, and really had a major impact, I think back to I read the blockchain the blockchain revolution by the Tapscots, who went on to found the blockchain research council or something like that. And then you look at guys like Andreas Antonopoulos, who he had Mastering Bitcoin, a bunch of other books, gave talks everywhere. And other people like that who contributed to the industry in meaningful ways, furthered blockchain, furthered the tech, created new innovations, sparked new conversations, onboarded new people, not just the dude who went on the internet and held up 4 fingers every time there was an emergency and said your funds are safe, right? It's I don't know, maybe that's just me, but when I look at the heroes and I look at the villains, I'm putting my heroes more on Andreas than CZ, and I'll probably have CZ more towards my villain. But he's almost like the neutral chaos is almost what I describe him as, right? Because it's to his point and what came out in the court where he told SBF, no, yeah, crypto is great. It's like the Wild West. There's not a lot of regulation. he's smart, right? He's almost like the ultimate product tester, where he's trying to break things because he knows there are things that can be broken, but kind of in like that weird gray hat zone within crypto.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, man. And again, I think when we look at this in the greater, scale of things, of his role compared to what even Justin's son or, the original, Tether heads did, because again, Paulo has been there for a while, but he just became the CEO. There's a lot of people who pulled a lot of strings in that industry, and it was very the infrastructure of crypto on the SEC side, the centralized exchange side,
Mm-hmm.
is 100%. You couldn't go through one exchange without going through another, and there was always someone at the top that was pretty much orchestrating what was allowed, what wasn't. And again, I think that we talked about Justin's son, that hack that happened like a week ago, and then we get another one
Yeah,
today.
Poloniex.
It's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I don't buy that that's a hack. I think that's a cover up for people who have a lot of money in there that don't want to be known, and they're just trying to get out. Again, I think that there is a lot of trapdoors in crypto still, and a lot of these exchanges where if something bad were to happen, again, SBF with Solana, right, which is shutting it off. I think that it's very similar that a lot of these other shady exchanges that don't operate in the US, but still technically allow you to operate in the US, via VPN or whatever, have those backdoors and those channels to get out. So I think that yes, CZ is 100%. I will not lose an ounce of sleep over CZ being in prison. I think that's the best place for him, but I do know that he's not the worst one in all of this, and that's a terrible thing to say. So that's all I got to say on that. I know I said a lot of stuff about like conspiracy when it comes to USDT, Tether, and all that stuff. Again, I have no actual lot of data and a lot of experience and just narratives that all line up towards a certain narrative that's kind of leaning in the way of. There's a good chance this could be lining up to be a bit more conspiratorial for the entirety of crypto. So just take that with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to slander anyone here, but ask questions and dig deep. I think that's the most important thing you can be doing right now. Don't just listen to these headlines because they're always behind the curve. I mean, a lot of people didn't think it was going to happen, and look what happened yesterday, right? I mean, there's things move fast. It takes a while, but then when they do move fast, they do move fast. So that's all I got on CZ. I do want to move into Nvidia because that's really important too. And NVIDIA is actually really interesting to me. Obviously, OpenAI is also really interesting to me. What an absolute clusterfuck when it came to OpenAI and their CEO changes and everything this entire week. I could care less about them right now, but again, I know that does impact the AI industry, both Microsoft and NVIDIA. But NVIDIA had a wild earnings, post earnings, and I mean this not necessarily what they reported, but in the price action that we saw with NVIDIA. I think the lowest we saw it go, yesterday was like 486 post market, and it rallied all the way up to, I couldn't even remember, I think it was like north of 502, but then it came all the way back down to settle somewhere around, I think, 490. And then this morning it opens roughly at, I think, where was it, opened at 498 this morning. So it rallied pre-market. I remember everything was pretty green, ahead of market open. You can see that it wicked all the way down to 476, for $476.90. It's currently sitting at 487, almost 488. So very volatile. I mean, very volatile in terms of 1 percentage point going back and forth. It's down 2% today, 2.3%. But NVIDIA is really interesting here because I was looking at this pattern, and it's a megaphone pattern. And I thought it was a head and shoulders because it clearly looks like head and shoulders. And we got that fake out where it bounced off this and kept pushing up. So it just rallied here. And this is the only thing that kind of concerns me about NVIDIA's price action, other than the gaps that are formed below because it just shot up like for no freaking reason, an extremely high amount and never back tested it. I think that we're seeing a lot of volatility at the top, and we're seeing that volatility has been suppressed both in the VIX and for the volatility index for a lot of stocks, especially Nvidia's. Nvidia's volatility index has been extremely low, but when we're seeing all-time highs and the volatility index extremely low for Nvidia, and we're in a megaphone pattern, I think that the market doesn't necessarily know which direction it wants to go, and it's just trading. But it's trading at the all-time high, and that's a terrible range for a lot of people to be speculating. I think you should be here making educated guesses with research. And I'm seeing, all these investment banks and institutions saying, well, we're going to raise our target from 605 to 650 for Nvidia. And it's like, oh my gosh, you guys are trying to stretch this out to the fucking end, aren't you? So I think it's a really dangerous place for Nvidia right now. I think that there's more chance of volatility to the downside than to the upside. I could be wrong, but I think that there's a lot of things that are lining up both on the consumer side and also just market technicals, where we saw a lot of the buybacks are kind of starting to slow down. They pumped 87 billion or something like that into the markets recently. CTA is just buying. So I'm not necessarily getting excited about Nvidia here. Um, Anything you got to say on Nvidia or the earnings? I also have another thing to bring up, but I want to hear your take first.
I mean, I think people look at Nvidia and they recognize, in the larger scale, they recognize the value of data and big data. And we saw just from crypto mining, we saw the big boom of Nvidia and other graphics cards where prices skyrocketed, and then you have companies like Micro Center who are like, hey, we're only going to sell you the graphics card if you buy the full PC because we don't want people. And now we're seeing something similar with AI where a large amount of compute is needed and you need a large amount of graphics cards. So I think while a lot seems to be murky, there seems to be a lot of optimism towards AI. And so if you're not necessarily understanding how to get your exposure to AI, right, people could view NVIDIA as kind of some sort of entry there. Plus, I mean, NVIDIA has just been having a great year, right? I mean, not necessarily trying to tell people or that most people are trying to buy the top of it. But when you've got something like this and I don't know, you're not necessarily, maybe you're not seeing a market crash or you're able to withstand it and you don't want to try and time the market. You want to know an Nvidia. I mean, there could be people that are viewing this as like a pre-split Amazon or Google, right? Remember when Amazon was up at 2K, 3K, and everyone was just going nuts because it kept taking off and it was, just seemed to be that company that was needed for 20 years straight and never really saw a decline. And I'm wondering if that's what people are thinking NVIDIA is. The past 10 years, we've seen more and more need for chips from AMD and NVIDIA. So if NVIDIA is really that leader and they continue doing what they're doing, improving, innovating, I mean, I think that's probably got to be the state of mind that people are like, let me keep buying NVIDIA, right? But at the same time, market takes a turn for the worst. Might not have been the best time to buy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good explanation of why consumers are definitely interested in this technology. I mean, I think exposure to AI in any capacity is what pretty much anyone's excited about. But I think the reason that a lot of people are also getting into it is because they're not necessarily sure what they're buying, but they know that someone else is going to buy, and that's something that kind of scares me right now. And I think that's greed. And for the most part, that's kind of the thing I like to trade against, because I think once people start to get too greedy, they don't necessarily understand things, and things can get really out of hand and overvalued. So I've been debating shorting Nvidia.
NFTs, NFTs,
NFTs,
NFTs.
absolutely, dude. First, what was that? First month of like March 2021, how insane everything just absolutely took off. But this is something I'm not going to say it's a AI is kind of a bubble. I mean, it is a bubble. I think it is in this market right now. How late it came in, I think it's going to be huge in the years to come. I think right now, just the excitement behind it and how much money there was in circulation in this economy and how resilient the consumers have been, and excited to see that, hey, it was easy to make money with Nvidia if you bought in. It just kept going up. I think that's the bubble itself, not necessarily that AI is going to be gone. Like, I'm not saying like the internet is never going to exist back in 1993, right? Like that shit's not going to last,
No, yeah, but
5 years.
there has been a massive almost over speculation, particularly on generative AI and more of that consumer facing side, which I think is what you were trying to say. Not necessarily that the AI as a whole is
Right.
overvalued, but people are placing a little bit too much weight without understanding what the long term potential is, as well as capabilities, and weighing the risk factors, right? Because that's what the people like Sam Altman, like Greg Brockman, you know, everyone that's in the AI industry is trying to deal with, is this a good thing for humanity or not? Whereas we're just like, how is this going to make me money?
Exactly. 100%. That's probably the best way I could have put it. Thank you for saying it that way. Also saying it in a way that makes me sound intelligent. I appreciate that. The thing that I have a problem with here, and again, I always bet against the masses. I do. I'm sorry. It's just because I think that easy money for the past 15 fucking years. Anything you bought in the stock market just went up, right? There's a lot of people on Twitter who I do respect that are very, they're very aware of things. And the one thing that I'm keep seeing, and I'm even looking into it now, I don't have an opinion on this yet, but I want to have one when we get back to the show next week, is they're comparing Nvidia currently to Enron, which is a really bold fucking statement, right? However, I've been looking at a lot of the financials for Nvidia. I don't necessarily think, from what I've seen, anything is too out of the ordinary. But I want to go back into a lot of the other earnings from earlier in the year and see how they match up, because I do think that there is a possibility that something could be off there. I mean,
Are they talking about pre-cooked booked or post-cooked book, Enron? Because if it's pre-cooked book, I'm all in.
I think it's pre-cooked, to be honest with you, brother. But the thing is, what scares me out of all of this is I've been saying that Nvidia is the one that could absolutely take this market down, especially in the tech. I think that could destroy the Nasdaq. Right? There's just so much weight, and this is pretty much if you know gaming was one of the hot topics for altcoins back in the last bull market. Gaming with Sandbox and Decentraland right towards the end in the metaverse. I think this could be right there up with it heading into the next bull run. This could be the next narrative. Okay, this is the big thing, AI, right? And again, and also superconductors and pretty much anything tech based, right? There's a lot of issues with Nvidia heading forward. We know that they're going to have a really bad. They said they're going to have a bad quarter heading into this year, or the current quarter, because of a lot of the restrictions selling chips to China. We also know that on their books, this is really weird to me too, a huge amount of their revenue is coming from Singapore, meaning people are buying their chips there, right? So I really, and again, I don't want to make any assumptions or anything like that, but I do want to dig into this and then hopefully come back next week. Maybe you or Jay Webb and I can all discuss it, but especially Jay Webb since he's so invested in Nvidia. But I think there is a chance, maybe Singapore is offloading some of those throughout parts of Asia, because that make the most sense to get around, the China issues that they're facing. But I think that there's something definitely off there, and I think that there are definitely reasonable questions to be raised, and it's something that's worth asking questions and digging deep. To quote Enron, literally, ask why. I know that was their slogan on all their commercials back in the 90s, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. I think Nvidia for right now is extremely overvalued. Just my personal opinion. I would not be buying at these levels. I think it's volatile too, with how much we're seeing this move up here. But I do think that if there is something bad that is going to happen, I mean, this could get ugly really fast. And I think it's just, this is what everyone's thinking to usher us into the next bull market. It's Nvidia. And I think a lot of the outlooks that these investment firms, these hedge funds, and these investment banks are saying, 650, 605, guys, that's a huge gap up. I mean, from where we currently are to say 650 by, next year, just think of the market cap of that too, right? I mean, that's another 33% to hit that target. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. But again, I could be dead wrong. So just something to think about. I think that everyone should take a look at Nvidia's financials. Make that decision for yourself. It's a good question to be asking right now. But I'm not going to believe anything until I've definitely done the research myself. Just something to keep in mind. All right, let's move on from that. Let's do some retail stuff, and then we'll take a look at altcoins, then we can call it a day. Retail stuff's very short, and I know you wanted to get into the gaming side because there is some huge news over there, and you've been doing pretty well for yourself too on the gaming side. So let's do this. Let's go to Kohl's real quick. I don't even know what the ticker is for Kohl's. KHP. There it is. KSS. I know they had a really bad day yesterday on the, expecting how this holiday season is going to go. They're up about 1.34% today, but you can see that yesterday they had an absolute 8.57% day down. Best Buy. Hey, I remember the ticker for that one. Best Buy also had a really bad day yesterday as well. Let's see that's, where is it? Best Buy. Actually, Best Buy rallied towards the end of the day. Interesting. So maybe it was, it opened extremely low, is at 64.95, so it's down a few percentage points. But a lot of these retailers, for the most part, are, they're obviously getting ready for Friday. Friday's Black Friday. We're anticipating that there is going to be some type of, we're expecting people to be buying once again. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case, and I think a lot of these retailers are the ones that are going to know beforehand. And the question is, are we starting to see demand dry up to the point where a lot of these companies, their profits, and their earnings next quarter aren't going to be as great as they were anticipating, especially given seasonality, right? So I think that we're going to be looking at how these numbers are going to come out next week, obviously from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all those deals and those sales, how everything went. I don't necessarily see it being bullish. Maybe the consumer does. They're regardless, they're going to spend money, like Jay Webb was saying, because they've set that money aside. But I don't know. I think we're going to see a lot of deals. I just don't know if we're going to see a lot of demand for those deals. And, these big ticket items are going to be the ones that we're going to be watching out for the most, right? I think electronics, I think, vehicles, stuff like that, big ticket items that you're going to buy someone for the holidays. Those are going to be the ones that we're going to be questionable about to see how they do. But, this is a wild way to wrap up the end of the year, right? This is going to wrap up Q4 for the year in December, this holiday season. And this is probably a good look into what we're expecting going forward into the next month. So I'd be really, really focused on these numbers when they do come out next week. Just wanted to look at this because we didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday with all the Binance news. And again, we talked about Binance today, but it seems like a lot of these retailers are absolutely bleeding out. And again, if we look at just the Russell and others, all the small caps, it's rallied significantly, but for the most part, it's still way below where it needs to be. And again, it's actually still in a five-way move to the downside, which is really interesting in itself. So I think the small caps are going to continue to bleed, and I think that retailers are going to continue to show extreme signs of weakness.
Yeah,
All
no, I
right.
mean, I think that's pretty accurate, especially with all the credit and debt talk that's been on M&S the past few months. I think probably not the most optimistic outlook for retail heading into holiday season.
Nah, did you see that they revised jobs down from the last week? I think it was down 24,000. But at the same time,
Mm.
people who have more than one job is higher than in the pandemic and the GFC. So clearly, people have multiple jobs right now, which is not a great sign. Um, you know, that shows you that I think the effects of inflation are still there, where goods are still extremely high, food, shelter, but the demand is coming down because people are working so much that they can't necessarily afford to buy, these expensive items. So very exciting to see. Unemployment is going to be the most important data set I think we're going to have to watch out for. But let's dive into crypto and then we could wrap it up. Before we get into any of the gaming tokens, just two things we want to take a look at. We want to see how Bitcoin is reacting today. It's up about $1,600. It's got a pretty good pump in it. Again, still within the supply range, and it's ignoring all the Binance FUD for bullshit. This is hilarious that it's back in here. It just shows you that they're just trying to offload. If they really wanted to put it to 4 DK, they could. I don't know if they're going to do that because I think the rats are running out of the flaming building and they're just trying to find every exit they possibly can. And retail, for some reason, thinks that, hey, Binance is going to be fine, that they're going to still see the same amount of volume that they were currently seeing. Just so you know, the volume was extremely low even before what happened. But yeah, this is not necessarily the most bullish chart that I'm seeing, especially after everything that's happened. And once again, think macro. Look at this on the weekly. We're still in a massive parallel channel, and we seem extremely overextended here. Weekly is extremely overbought. It's at 100 and 100. It's the most overbought it could be. The monthly, 89, 84 by December. It's probably going to be in the 90s for both of those. And if we look at this on the daily, we're extremely oversold, I believe. Yeah, we're oversold on this. So we could push up a little bit more moving forward. Just keep an eye on that because I think there is opportunities. But I also think that trading this is like trying to catch a falling knife in both directions, right? I think that there's a good chance something bad could happen that takes it down. And I also think that if you are buying here, just understand who you're buying it from. It's not anyone that you would ever meet in real life. These are going to be people that are hiding in the shadows. I'll just leave it at that. Binance BNB, just so you guys know, I did have a short on BNB yesterday. I shorted it from like 243, I believe, and I rode that all the way down to 224, which is not bad. 7x, stupid degen bet, but then I closed it out at 231 today with the printing of $1 billion worth of tether. I was like, not this shit again. So I made that little trade. I'm currently long on Binance right now. I do think that it's going to retest, this blue parallel channel right here. And then again, you can see all my fucking crazy wave counts, but we had a good 5-wave move to the downside. I'm seeing a 3-wave move here, wave A, B. We're currently in wave C. I think that's going to probably retest somewhere between 240 to 244. I'm probably going to take profit and then either reassess the next move down. But I do think that if we start with a 5-wave move down, it's going to be 3, could be 5, could be another 3, and then another 5. Key levels, obviously 220, 212, and 203. Those are the levels that we couldn't break. I'm getting a little bit skeptical beyond that because then that means I think we're getting into Binance's supply. They own 76% of the asset, so I'm not going to be anticipating that the asset's going to drop too much south of that range unless something horrible were to happen. Just some thoughts on that because people are definitely speculating on this. It bounced a good $9-10 since the low yesterday. So just something to keep in mind. But that's all I'm looking at really on the crypto front. Obviously, alts are doing okay today. Everything's kind of bouncing back, a little bit. I think some even doing really well. ETH is doing really well, 7.42%. We're seeing XRP doing pretty well, 6%, 6%, almost 7% for ADA. Matic up 6.3%. KuCoin up 7.06. I think there is definitely a lot of euphoria in the market just looking at that. I didn't even look at the alts. I'm seeing some that's fishy, guys. I'll just say that. But is there any tokens that you want to talk about? I know you have been pretty much killing it lately when it comes to farming and making money from these games. You're probably the smartest one in the entire market right now, playing video games and making money. I mean, I wish I could be doing that, but I'm not as fun as you, House.
No, yeah. I mean, I always dreamed of the day that I could get paid for playing video games, and I mean, hey, I guess I'm living the dream now. No, but there's been a massive explosion in GameFi tokens, and it's kind of coming on the heels of a few things. There's been a few solid games that have released either in beta or in full build and have looked really promising. Also, still some unreleased that have just shown great footage, great milestones, and leaps in their development. And with that, we also get the influencers that come in and are posting their YouTube videos of here's the next coin that's going to make you 1000x in the bull market.
Gotta love
But
them.
no, some of them actually made some pretty solid calls. Like Alex Becker, he's the founder of Neo Tokyo. He actually had a few great tokens highlighted, but if you're buy the token after the video, I would do more research than what Becker provides because you might already be too late once you post the video. That's the kicker with a lot of those YouTube ones. But no, some of the gaming tokens that have done really well. I think probably the best if you want to pull it up. Or actually
Sure.
we can go seed fund first. But yeah, I was thinking Prime. It's just
Yeah, I see
Prime
that.
by Echelon Prime. So
Put up in
Prime's
Reddit.
one because we've talked about it a couple times on here before. It's the token for the parallel ecosystem, but it has been on an absolute heater since like the end of October, last few weeks there. I've got it up over 175% since the end of October, which is absolutely wild. Shot from low $2, mid $2 up, broke nearly $8.50, which is absurd. But I wouldn't say it's completely unwarranted as far as what the team has promised, what they've built, what they've shipped. It's a weird combination of like a GameFi as well as an AI token. So their current game is a trading card game. They upped the emissions of the token, so I think that helped drive some of the price action. People getting excited they're earning more, but then also the development as far as their AI game Colony, that's piqued a lot of people's interest. And then also just the development of their physical collectibles and furthering their IP has been really, really successful. It seems like they've been, boots on the ground, heads down, working real hard on it, while everyone else has just been screaming about how they're going to be the next Disney. Parallels come out as the first parallel, and their stuff's looking really good. It's showing in the token price and also in one of their avatar collections. It's up from like, I want to say it was less than a quarter ETH. Now it's like 0.8 ETH floor. So shout out to the parallel team. But then, Speedify Fund, that was one of the other ones. If you want to pull up that chart, it's
Yeah, I
it's
gotcha.
a similar story from like mid to late October until now. It's up like 275%. So if you're not aware of Seedify Fund, what they are is they're an IDO and ICO launch pad specifically aimed towards gaming projects, although they'll take on infrastructure, anything else, kind of operating within the space that they see a use for. But they had a lot of success during the bear market, specifically with their IDOs and ICOs. And they have like Engine Starter on there. They just did Plexify. They've done a few others. They're also building a game called Seed World. They have a few NFT collections out for that. But the fund as a whole has performed really well with the ICOs and IDOs that you get access to by staking the token. And also the games that they're incubating within the fund, they'll make some investments themselves, as well as their personal, in-house game Seed World. All the progress looks great. They've been garnering a lot of attention on social media for it. The gaming influencers from traditional, gaming backgrounds, they've seemed really big on a lot of what Seedify has built. So that's probably what's driving that token up. And we don't need to pull up the charts for the rest of them, but Shrapnel, it released, I want to say about 10 days ago, if not less. It's up 160% from launch. Launched at 10 cents. Now it's battling its way between like 18 and 24 cents up and down. Merit Circle DAO, they've got it's a subnet token on Avalanche. They're up from like 33 cents to like 86 or something like that since mid-October. And they were down closer to like 16 cents in the spring. Alluvium token up from like around 30-40 bucks now it's past 100, all since the end of October. So I think it's ultimately coming out of, people have been waiting for these games for anywhere for 1 to 3 years. They've been seeing a lot of teasers, seeing a lot of development. A lot of games have fallen off, and either people realized, okay, that this team does not have the capability to deliver what I think they are. But then we've also seen teams like Parallel and Seedify deliver great products that are showing high demand in the market. Incentives are aligned between the consumer and the business, and they're doing very well. So, it'll be interesting to see how they do in the months to come, because I know Seedify and Prime specifically, they have a lot going on within their ecosystems. Shrapnel, their beta launches in December, and they've been doing a lot of promotion around that. So I have a feeling probably post beta, or at least once beta starts, we'll get a better indication of what people, or not necessarily what people, but where the token might head based off of people's perspective of the game, right? Because it's a game token, it's meant to drive the in-game economy. And if the game isn't fun, there's not really a use for the players to want the token at the end of the day. And then Alluvium, same thing. Teams had some great stuff shipping soon. Merit Circle kind of stands out as it's a DAO token, but the DAO operates a subnet on Avalanche. So by holding the token, you have the token for the subnet. If you haven't looked into Avalanche subnets, they're pretty interesting to look into. It's essentially a layer 2, but it's owned exclusively by whoever validates the nodes. They can either choose to validate it themselves as a company, or make it open for the company and consumer to validate. So that's a nice little tidbit for you there. But yeah, I'm watching those tokens and a few others, just because there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out of development, and it's really cool to see the progress and some actually genuinely fun games being built.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you've absolutely killed it, and calling these. I remember texting the group chat, and I was like, okay. I looked at the chart, and I'm like, gotcha. And then you sent me like, look at the chart now, and I looked at Seedify or Prime, and it's like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, I thought this was a bear market, but clearly there's definitely value to be had, and it's great to see that there's still people that are doing extremely well in the bear market. Obviously, I'm gonna be listening to you when I think it's time to invest. Obviously, there's always time to invest in certain things, but I'm going to be looking for definitely some good projects out there from you, taking your word, because if I want any exposure to that, you seem like the guy to know to find the good ones. So yeah, it's great calls. I want to pull up one last thing. It seems like the market is doing some interesting stuff right now. Let's just pull up. I'm going to pull up actually TradFi because we're going to go over this real quick. Nothing too crazy in TradFi. I just wanted to show you what this move has been to the upside since October 30th. We've been moving up, right? And we've been gapping. The blue gaps are ones that we haven't filled yet, but right on market open, guys, gapped and closed this son of a bitch. So we can close this one now. That was the last gap to
Is
the north.
when did that S&P move start? Was that like October 21st or October 14th, something like that?
Let me pull it up for you. It was like, I thought it was closer to the 30th. Yeah, it was
30th.
Monday, October
Okay.
30th.
A lot of these gaming tokens started to move up between like October 21st and October 22nd. So yeah, I think my weekend kind of task for myself is figuring out what the fuck happened between October 20th and 30th that sent everything
Oh, I
straight
know.
up. Because we
Dude,
were
it's
we were
easy.
in Spooktober for the first 20 days of the month, and then just went up only the last month.
I mean, I think
For the
we
last
all
10
know
days, it was wild.
that was when they were just sending fucking tether nonstop to all the exchanges, dude. There was just so much money flowing in. So I could definitely see that being like a catalyst for okay, a lot of people are like, fuck it, let me just, bet on these tokens that I'm buying right now. And I could have shot it up, right? Again, low liquidity, low
That's
volume
fair.
could definitely move that market fast as could be. So
But
that
it
would be my
doesn't move
best
the
guess.
S&P up. So that's what I'm
Right.
wondering is what's moving both markets, right? Because I think you're raising a good point. I think that the CZ manipulation, Binance, whoever was responsible, whether it was the company or the person, who's to say, who's to know. But no, I think that definitely impacted crypto. But I don't know. It's weird that you see the delineation of both of them going down and then right at the last minute pulling up. So finding root causes, or at least trying to run the rabbit hole internally and say eureka. And it's always an interesting thought experiment.
For S&P, I'm just going with the tried and true. People looked at the ticker tape and they saw that people were positioned to the downside and it was extremely oversold. And I think the machines were just buying up in mass once the markets opened because I think it was a Monday that they actually started pumping, right? Yeah, Monday, October.
Yeah.
There it is. So people were positioned poorly going into Monday. I think the machines came in and bought heavy on that, and then once the machines start buying, volumes start kicking in, then people are having to cover their positions, push the price up. That's my belief, and I think that just because we started moving that way, people believe we're in a trend. I mean, but I will say this: we literally closed every gap to the upside that wasn't closed prior. Right? This was a big one. That was my least favorite scenario. I mean, second least favorite scenario, right? Because obviously I'm extremely bearish on this market, but I thought that's the worst case scenario would be an end of year rally. I don't believe that we are going to get one. I think this was the end of year rally, just my personal opinion. And from what I'm seeing, we broke back into this massive parallel channel for the S&P on the daily, right? We had a death cross rally that rallied us up into a really good high. We're starting to see volatility here, right? I mean, guys, this is sold off so much within the past few hours. Let me pull up the hourly. You can see what it's done, right? So it went above it and went way below it and then went right back above it. I'm really interested to see how they close in the next 10 minutes because if it starts to close below 10 points or something like that, I think that we could be in for maybe a little bit of positioning heading into next Monday. I mean, we got Black Friday. Friday, it's a half a day of trading. We're not going to cover anything on the show. But this is what I want you to focus on. It's keep an eye on what this market does Friday and how it positions itself because I think that's definitely going to lead into, where we're going next. There's a lot of gaps to the downside. If we filled all of them to the upside, I think we're going to fill all of them to the downside. I cannot speak right now. I need something liquid in my mouth that's water. I said that's so fucking weird, but you definitely can tell I hadn't sleep last night looking at these damn markets. But yeah, the S&P, this is the hourly. I think it is going to fill it to the downside. And if I'm looking at this, I mean, I hate being an asshole. This looks so bad. If we're looking at this on Elliott wave theory, I think that's an ABC correction. And I can say that this is a 5-wave move to the downside, not impulsive, but it is a 5-wave, obviously, because we have overlapping fourth and first waves. But this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we're going to, start to go back down. There's so much bullishness right now, people calling for higher highs and everything like that. We got Nvidia out of the way. Nvidia, we kind of needed the markets to stay up until just in case anything bad were to happen. That didn't affect the price nearly as much. We're seeing a lot of these CEOs sell off. I mean, NASDAQ, I'm looking at this right now. You got a massive gap right there and a massive gap there. I mean, we put in. I mean, this is all-time highs. I'm not mistaken, right? I think. Oh,
I
I'm
think
gonna
you're
be
right.
tweaking. Oh no, I'm dead right. Look at that. This is ridiculous when you look at. Oh no, I'm stupid. It just didn't load. So yeah, we put in a lower high, but it's yearly highs for Nvidia, the Nasdaq. Might as well just be for Nvidia. But again, if we look at this on the trend line, you can still see. I mean, obviously it'd be better if it was down here, but it's another high. I don't necessarily think that there's anything too concerning about this. We look at this on the daily. Yep, it's up. I think we're going to close the week up still, and that kind of allows these weekly stochastic RSIs to get nice and overbought, and then that means on the daily, on the weekly, and also on the monthly, they're extremely overvalued in the overbought territory. That's going to be the important thing, I think, here. And the last thing we'll talk about is the VIX. The VIX has been absolutely crushed lately, right? I mean, it's been down. It's been down so bad. I mean, if we just look at this on the daily, it's had 2 green days since it peaked up out here. We can literally see the 2 green days down here and just kept going down. So this is definitely an impulsive move down. But I also think that this is crushing volatility. A lot of people are shorting it. A lot of people are also seeing that the machines are buying the market. So it's pushing it up. I think we're going to see something very similar to what we've seen in the past before we started to see a pretty good move to the upside. I think we're going to have to test this 1271. It's just something we're going to have to keep an eye on. I don't necessarily think we're going to do it today. Maybe we could do it Friday. Maybe we do it Monday morning pre-market. It's very possible. But I think that we are going to come down and test this. But if we look at where it's, once we tested it, what's happened in the past, it's bounced off that, 35% move there. If it bounced off it there, roughly 48% there. And then down here, once it bounced off that, well over 70-80% there. And if we look at this back further here, we haven't had anything touched down there in a while, but the last time it kind of was down in this range, for a period of time, was COVID, right before the COVID crash, and we shot up roughly from I can't even hold on. I gotta zoom out even more. This is that bad. But yeah, we were roughly around this 1271, and we shot up 612%. So I definitely think that we are loading up for something in terms of volatility. I think everything's extremely overbought. We watch, currency, the dollar is resurging a little bit here today. It might be from dollar demand. We really have to watch dollar demand moving forward. And if we look at gold right here too, it sold off a little bit earlier today, but 1990 is still nothing that we shouldn't be unconcerned about. Next week, we have GDP, we have PCE, I believe. So a lot of things that could definitely move this market, and we're definitely at an inflection point. I want to see how the markets close this week and how people are positioning themselves for Monday, because it could be a very different market come the last few weeks of December if all these things are lining up to be what I believe they are to be. So that's just my opinion. That's just what I've been seeing in the charts. I think people are getting greedy, and I like to call people out for being greedy because that's where the money is. Just my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much just how I wanted to leave the show, because TradFi is boring, but at the same time, there's definitely moves happening, and that's the most important thing we need to see for market sentiment, and see how long this charade or charade, however you want to pronounce it. I call it charade. This wants to go on for. So that's all I got to say. Anything you want to add before we head out for today? Long episode.
No, yeah. I mean, I think really enjoyed the conversation today. It was really fun. But no, I mean, most of all, hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving weekend and enjoys the time with their family and loved ones. And then yeah, just look forward to watching myself Monday and seeing you and JWeb kill it per usual.
Definitely, man. Yeah, I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday. Obviously, got a few days off. It's good to unplug from the markets. I'm definitely going to try and do that this week too. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm just going to. Obviously, crypto money never sleeps. But yeah, just thanks, guys, for always being here. I'm grateful for everyone. We're going to be back Monday for a regular time show. Obviously, follow us on Twitter. In the links will be in the description. Keep up with anything that we're seeing in the market, because obviously things can move fast. Anything we did say here today, again, 100% our own opinions. We don't necessarily, we're not trying to slander anyone. We're not trying to say anything, in truth. We're just trying to report what we're seeing and possible scenarios that it could be. Again, everything else, we kind of just have to wait to play out. And that goes hand in hand with a lot of the Nvidia stuff. Also, a lot of the stuff that relates to Binance, Tron, and I was about to call them Apollo CZ, but no, Tether within itself. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes to light in the coming weeks. We're just giving you, what we think could possibly be happening. But again, always do your own research, because that's going to be your best bet for making decisions in the market. We're just a few guys that love talking about markets and JWeb shooting turkeys. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you all for being here for this long episode, and we will see you guys soon. Later.